Hello, good evening, welcome to another Paratus video. My name is Gideon, and the topic of tonight's discussion, or this morning's discussion rather, when this video will be going live, firearm license renewals. Now, as many of you are aware, I'm a big advocate of an amendment to our existing legislation that we should license the person and then register the firearms, as opposed to licensing each and every single firearm individually, and these licenses then expiring. Expiry dates serve no purpose. Licensing every individual firearm serves no purpose. It makes far more sense that the individual firearm owner themselves be licensed instead, as a driver's license or a pilot's license or whatever else you want to example you want to use in that stead. Unfortunately, that's not the system we have right now. That is a discussion for another night because it's quite in-depth, and there's a lot of that I'd like to unpack to get it some proper political traction, because I think the time is now to start making these suggestions to our political representatives. However, this morning, I would rather like to discuss with you or explain to you how the firearm renewal process works and how we got into a situation where 500,000, if not close to 700,000 South Africans found themselves in a situation where they sit with an expired firearm license and no way out of this quagmire in the moment, and we've effectively criminalized like 700,000 people, close to 1 million people, for no good reason. Well, not criminalized yet, but on the road to criminalizing them. Hopefully an amnesty happens soon, something people can take advantage of. As vehemently against amnesties as I am, this is one way out. There are several other ways out as well. But for now, let's see how the situation develops before we can come up with the actual workable solution on that. So, how to renew your firearm and why you should do it earlier rather than later. So, the renewal process, you fill in a form, a SAPS 518 or 518A, and there's a couple of things you need to, populate, a couple of fields you have to populate on there. And I'm going to bring up on screen paragraph or sections 37 and 38 specifically that you're going to have to fill in. And 37 says, was your application handed in 90 days before expiry of the existing license? If no, submit the reason. And section 38, was your application handed in after the due date but before expiry of the existing license? If yes, submit the reason. Now, before I unpack what the law actually says, and that's going to come on screen as well, what these two paragraphs, or what these two sections essentially say is, if you miss the 90-day deadline, because the law says you need to renew your firearm license 90 days before it expires, minimum. It doesn't prescribe a maximum period beforehand, which is why I would personally recommend that you renew that license maybe 5 months before, especially with the ongoing crisis. Yes, I know DFOs are willing to show people away and say, oh, it's too early, we're afraid you're going to clog up the system. To that, I'd say put pressure on your DFO if they show you away. Refuse to take no for an answer and submit your renewal applications early, and we'll talk about how to do that in a moment. But get your renewal, find out when your license expires and try to, at the very least, put in your renewal application 5 months before it expires. If for some reason you miss the 90 days before expiry, but your license hasn't yet expired, you can make use of these two sections to explain why you were not capable of handing that renewal application in before 90 days. And from what I've heard from people that have done this, they don't give you unnecessary grief about it. Just be honest, explain why you missed it, and then submit your renewal. And we'll talk about what your renewal application must look like in a moment. However, if that freaks you out, your other option, if you have missed the 90 days, is to take the firearm, book it onto dealer stock, that's before the license has expired, and then apply for that license as if it's a brand new firearm from scratch. Those are your two ways out if you miss the 90 days. So if you miss 90 days, those are your two ways out. Preferably don't. But once the license has expired, and there's a section 39 on there as well, which says, was your application handed in after the expiry of the existing license? If yes, submit a reason. That's basically a bunk section. You're screwed. And that's why this legislation sucks so much, is essentially if your license expires, the penalties for allowing your firearm license to expire are extensive, folks. You can forget your wedding anniversary. You can forget your child's birthday. You can forget your grandchild's birthday. You can forget almost wanting to say you could rather forget to pay your taxes before you forget to renew your firearm license. The legislation sucks. It is absolutely tyrannical, and it will punish you horribly if you forget. That's why I'm saying it. Tattoo your expiry dates under your eyelids if you have to. But we are subjected to a regime in this country that hates civilian firearm ownership, that have written laws to make it as difficult as possible. Okay, you cannot, if you own guns in this country, you cannot miss your renewal. I know it only comes around every 5 to 10 years, but you can't miss it. Okay, until we manage to get this law amended so that it's actually workable. For now, I strongly recommend you make that a priority. So what does the law actually say? Let's quickly bring that up on screen. The Renewal of Firearm Licenses, Section 24 of the Firearms Control Act. The holder of a license issued in terms of this chapter who wishes to renew the license must, at least 90 days before the date of expiry of the license, apply to the registrar for its renewal. Note, it does not say there's any sort of maximum time before. So if your DFO tries chasing you away because he claims you're clogging up the system, tell him he's talking absolute nonsense. You want to renew early because you've seen what happens if people miss that 90-day thing and if their license expires. So you're coming to renew now, 5 months before, and you must just deal with it. Carrying on from there, the application must be accompanied by such information as may be prescribed and delivered to the designated firearms officer responsible for the area in which the applicant ordinarily resides or in which the applicant's business is, as the case may be. So you've got at least 2 options there already. If your one DFO is giving you hassles, or if you don't have a good relationship with them. Not that that should ever be an inhibitor for you renewing your license. Carrying on. No application for the renewal of the license may be granted unless the applicant shows that he or she has continued to comply with the requirements for the firearm license in terms of this act, which basically means if you're licensed at Section 16, you must basically just explain that here's your endorsement letter, you're carrying on using this firearm for its originally intended purpose. Your circumstances haven't changed. Please reissue. See attached motivation letter. Same for Section 15. Same for Section 13. I renewed my self-defense license essentially by going through the process of attaching my original motivation, slightly updated, saying my circumstances haven't changed, and they granted me my renewal, as they've granted numerous other people. Carrying on further. If an application for the renewal of a license has been lodged within the period provided for in subsection 1, the license remains valid until the application is decided. So even if your license then expires, as long as you've applied for its renewal, it will remain valid, and all you need is the receipt. So it basically then is treated like a driver's license actually. So how to go about the process of renewing a firearm license, what do you need to know? It's essentially you want to treat this as not as a new application, but you also want to attach your motivation, annexures, and supporting evidence. Okay, there are all sorts of nonsense about Section 15's people requiring a proof of participation or sports club membership, which is nonsense. You don't need that for Section 15. Don't take my word for it. If you are uncertain about this, I recommend you use a qualified person of good reputation to assist you in if either going over your motivation that you have or writing you a new one. My personal choice for this is a good friend of mine, and he's had a very good hit ratio. It's Max Rosley from Motivus. I've attached their contact details in the description below. Feel free to get in contact with Max and let him help you through your renewal process. He understands the urgency of this. He understands how important it is. We want to keep guns in the hands of good law-abiding people, and we don't want them to be arbitrarily disarmed and criminalized by a malicious and tyrannical state who writes shit laws. Hopefully you can get those amended soon. If you've got any questions, please feel free to contact me. You can find my email address on the Paratus website. Please leave me a comment below. If you like what we do, Burritos Coffee gives us a nice cut of every bag that they sell. You can find the link through which to purchase below as well. And also this went on sale for the first time today as of time of recording. The Paratus caps retailing at about $2.20 on the Paratus store. This is probably the first and the last time they'll be at this good a price, for the simple reason that the input costs have increased for the next run. So this is a batch of 100. The next batch of 100 will be slightly more expensive. Link to the store below. You've been awesome. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hope this has been informative. See you all soon. Thank you and bye-bye.